Am I a fan of retro video games? Was that really a question?
Since I was a kid, man, it's always been about retro video games.
I don't collect. I was very much a normal fan, if you want to call it that. I wasn't over the top. I mean, I had my games that I played religiously.
My appreciation for all those games goes back pretty early.
As a kid, I was always a Nintendo person from age 6, about when the NES came out. And my dad got my brother and me an NES for Christmas one year, and I knew about Nintendo. I had heard about it, that it was coming out, that it was this video game system, and I thought it was cool, but I had never been able to interact with the TV before. So when he got it, I figured it was going to take like weeks to calibrate our TV to work so that I could interact with it. And I asked my dad, so how long is this going to take to set up? And he was like, 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And so hitting a button and seeing the TV move sounds stupid, but it was the first time it ever happened for me. And it was like, actually was one of those mind-blowing experiences of like, I can control a thing on the TV and I'm playing this awesome game now. And that was Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt.
Since the Nintendo, I've been steadily collecting. I still have all my old games from a kid. I've never gotten rid of them. So I went from the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo. I picked up a Sega Genesis. I even had like the Sega CD. I got an old Atari 2600 at a yard sale. I played so much like Space Invaders on that thing. But it all started with Super Mario Brothers. It's a lot of nostalgia. A lot of my childhood can be traced back to those old games, Zelda, Mario. I loved RPGs growing up, so all the old Final Fantasy games, the Harvest Moon series, I started that as a kid. And so that love has never really escaped me. And I do love going to these conventions and looking at these old games that I used to play and just thinking, wow, man, it's cool that a whole new generation of gamers are still interested or trying to grow an interest in the games that started it all.
My grandmother on my father's side had an Atari 2600. And that, whenever we went over to my grandma's house, I didn't even want to have anything to do with my grandparents. Let's play Atari, and then my mom's mother had a Nintendo, an NES. And that's what really hooked me. Because my grandmother and I would play Super Mario Brothers 3 together, and she would always let me be Mario. And that is where I got the majority of my video game love. And to this day, Super Mario Brothers 3 is my favorite game of all time.
Well, I got a Nintendo when I was 5 for Easter. And it was Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, and the Olympics, like that combo pack game. So I played those games, and eventually I probably had about 20 Nintendo games, maybe throughout the next like 3 or 4 or 5 years. So I've played tons of Nintendo. I still have an old Nintendo. I don't really play it. It's in my dad's garage back in Jersey. But every once in a while, one of my other friends from growing up, he would crack out his old Sega Genesis. That was like the next system I got. We'd play a lot of NHL 96. I know 94 is the game, but we were big NHL 96 guys.
NHL 95, it was a real eye-opener for me. Super Mario Brothers and Monster Party was one of my favorite ones. There was an Uncle Fester game, I can't remember the name of it, but that was pretty awesome too.
My dad really liked Zelda and Link, all the way up until the GameCube. Like he pretty much had every Link and Zelda, and we were playing, and we beat him.
We always had Nintendo systems in my house. So we had the NES all the way up through after people long abandoned the NES for the Super Nintendo. And I didn't get a Super Nintendo until probably 1994 or something. And so we had all of these later NES games that no one else really had. We were still buying Mega Man 5 and 6 and like Little Nemo and all of these things, which apparently now end up being the really rare games.
I watched my brother play a lot of the games. He never really let me play because I was his little sister and I wasn't very good. But I like to play Mario Kart.
I had a Nintendo system and that me and my brother shared. He was more into, well, he was better at the games is actually what the truth of the matter was. So I kind of became more of like the cheering section. But I was really especially into Zelda, and I also really liked Mario. And then there was a ton of other games that we played that we would just rent from Blockbuster.
Retro video games were pretty much my entire childhood growing up. My sister and I really didn't get along, but the one thing we had in common was we always wanted to play Super Nintendo together, and then later the Nintendo 64, and we loved playing Ms. Pac-Man, which I think everyone knows by now is my favorite if you've seen anything I do. I don't really shut up about it because I love it. And then also Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3, which Mikey would always yell at me when he came over to film something because the boxes were on the floor. I'm sorry, they're probably still there. And then also Super Mario World, and then Donkey Kong 64, Super Smash Brothers. I just love it. It's whenever I think of it, I just think of happiness. I never think of like anger, yelling, or a negative time. It was just always happy while I was playing. Even if I was frustrated, it was still all happy memories.
I was born in the 90s, so I grew up in the era of the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox, the original one. So I kind of grew up with those games, but I did play a lot of older games too. I remember I had a Sega Genesis that my aunt gave me. And from there I just kind of played some of the games on there. I honestly can't remember, it's been so long ago. But then I got a PlayStation once the very first one came out. And a lot of the games that I played were actually remakes of older games for that system, games like Sonic, Frogger, Street Fighter, all kind of things on the PlayStation, but just original games. So I did play quite a bit of retro games, but again, I grew up in that era of just point-and-click shooters. So that's a lot of what I played, but I was always a big Sonic fan. I really loved Sonic. I had kind of like I believe it was a box set of like the first 3, but it was for the PlayStation, of course.
Not everybody had console games back in the day. I'm first generation American. My family is Old World Transylvanian, and they came here with not much money. So to buy a kid a console game and these expensive games that came with it was pretty much unheard of. My video game obsession initially started at shopping malls. Back in the day, you can talk mom or dad into dropping you off at the mall for a couple hours in like that little section of the movie theater that has all the arcade games. But I didn't have an allowance or anything like that to play these like very satisfying looking fighter games and driving games. So what I did was I drew pictures and illustrations and sold them for like $0.25 to my classmates in elementary and middle school so I could earn enough money to waste it on arcade games.
I also spent a lot of summers at the shore in Wildwood where there's tons of arcades, and there was one particular arcade that we went to constantly. And so that's how I got into like games like Pac-Man, and oddly enough, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
I got into playing Medal of Honor for a while, computer game Medal of Honor, and that occupied a lot of my time. I got really good at that, to the point where I was like in 3 different clans, at the same time. I had 3 different screen names, constantly changing, because I would play that so late into the night, it would be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and my dad would be coming downstairs to go to work, and I'd still be playing, and that was the clan from Germany, because their time was so much different, that I was playing in a clan that was from Germany, and I didn't understand anything they would say. They only knew like limited English, like, hey, you want to be in our clan? Sure. And I joined. I'd be in like these clan meetings in the chat rooms, and I would have no clue what's going on. So, are we gonna play?